All right, everybody. I think we're live. If you can hear me, make sure you mention in the chat, yes, we can hear you, or hey, the audio's terrible, or let's just not even do this. Whatever it is you want to mention, please do so I can make sure that this is the most enjoyable experience possible. I want to say thank you to you guys for being here on the first ever Marauder Monday, which is something I'm going to start doing on a weekly basis. I want to make sure to interact with everybody and have a chance to talk to as many of you as I can in the chat and everything else, and then address things that are going on right now, and then also allow for some good conversation about some of the more outlandish aspects of prepping, especially in the sense of Marauders. So I just wanted to go ahead and, I don't know, create kind of a stable weekly communication source for us to be able to talk to each other and interact as a community, because right now with everything else going on, I think that's extremely important, and hopefully we can continue to network and do more here. And I do know that we're going to have some more guests on here in the future, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, make sure you guys come back on the 19th. I'll actually have Rudy from Alaska Prepper on the show, and that's going to be a good time. We'll discuss some things, especially some more of his expertise area, and then, of course, we'll also go into some of the more outlandish items. Okay, so let's see here. Thank you, everybody in the chat. I want to go ahead and make sure everybody understands how much I appreciate you all. So let's see, let's go through a couple of people here. We got, let's see, Jim Cronmiller, Lucius Maximus, Grandma Prepper, Papa Smurf, Salty Tide, Blue Collar Prepper, Joe Sniffin Biden. We got, let's see, Censored Not Silent, Unforeseen Outdoors. How's everybody doing? So good to see you guys. We'll see if any of my mods pop in. I mean, it's possible, but if not, we might have to anoint somebody a mod by the end of the night, because there's going to be somebody in here causing problems at some point, because that's what we do, okay? So, like I said, I wanted to at least use this as a way to get information out on a weekly basis, talk to you guys, have some more interaction. And I know that I don't do a lot of live streams, so I'm going to start forcing myself to do them every single week. So that way there's a good way for us to talk and be a little bit more personable. You know what I mean? I'm not just some robot. And according to popular belief, but I guarantee it's not true, I am not Illuminati, I am not a reptilian, and I do know real magic, but don't tell anybody. Okay, so want to make sure we got everybody in here that wants to be here, and all the people who don't as well. All right, so I just want to say hi to a few more people. Jenny Cass, good to see you. Harley Gildy 03, I hope. Sean Romero, Jeffrey Lindquist, Jason and the Argonaut Preppers, Robot Prepper, which is probably the most equipped prepper to deal with some of the future threats that we're facing these days. And let's see, Ham Bam 1, what's going on? Brian Keith Prepper, what's up? All right, so the title of this live stream is Stability Failing. And what I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is the fact that we can take examples from what's happening around the rest of the world. And yes, I'm still going to be handsy even in my live streams, and get some ideas about what things will look like here when things start to kick off. And it's going to be difficult because people are starting to lose, I guess, faith or hope in many parts of the world. And they're also starting to show what desperation really looks like in other parts of the world, especially with the effects of everything that's been going on from last year. So I do want to say I will try to access the chat as often as possible. I do want you guys to, leave questions, let me know if there's things that you want to have addressed or things you want to add in, and I'll do my best to address it and get to it, okay? So one of the first things that's going on right now, obviously the Cuba protests. And yes, those are being shoved in front of our faces quite a bit right this second, which, mostly looks like a way to give some validity to, current leadership or something, to have something to address that sounds good on paper no matter what, right? It's hard to side with the government in Cuba, so it's easy to go follow what the people are doing and support them, whether or not you're actually going to physically support them, monetarily support them, or just talk about it on the news to make yourself sound better. But that's exactly what's happening right now. Prepper Nation, thank you for being here. You are a mod, and I will hopefully need your assistance at some point, because if someone's not in here causing problems, is it really a live stream? That's got some validity to it, right? So what's going on in Cuba, right? Obviously there's protests, and a lot of it's being said to be, because of this or that, because people are upset about the way the economy is going. It's because of the lack of, what do you want to call it? I guess response to what's been going on with the pandemic. And it's because the people are unhappy and don't have the freedom that they believe they should have. All those things make sense. And like this article says, there's no food, there's no medicine, there's no freedom. They do not let us live. And that's understandable for an entire population of people to be upset about. Now, the issue is that people basically are protesting something that's been in place for decades now, and nothing has changed in that area. And these people are still going to go to the streets and make sure their voices are heard. But there's really not going to be much reason for actual change without something more catastrophic occurring or without foreign intervention. And either one of those situations is a negative in the sense of what could be happening on the world stage. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Like I said, a lot of this is being thrust in front of our faces thanks to the mainstream media. People are trying to push their narrative out there to let us know what's happening. But in reality, you know, it looks like a lot of good optics in the sense of a low risk situation to support without actually having any skin in the game. And that's what's going on right now. But it does give us some insight as to what's happening in another part of the world when the population gets to a point of desperation. And what they're saying is basically, look, the leadership has failed. We're not getting the resources we need. We're no longer able to operate freely. And now we're going to hit the streets. And now we're going to cause more chaos and things are going to change, or else we're going to have more problems. And that's something that we can expect to see in our country as well as other parts of the world when these scenarios don't improve. And in fact, they get worse. And with what's happening right now, thanks to the effects of last year and thanks to the effects of all of the other things going on in the world, we know that things aren't going to just get better suddenly. So we have to look at what's happening in places like Cuba and say, okay, so this could easily happen here if things keep going into the same direction that they're dealing with. And yes, it's not ideal, of course, to, you know, look at something like that happening and expect it to, I don't know, be a situation that we have here, but it is something we can learn from and at least get some ideas from in the sense of how people might react once we reach a precipice of not being able to provide for the people. And that's exactly what's happening there, okay? So anything you guys have to add about that, please do so in the chat. Let us know what's going on. Prepper Now in the house, thank you so much. Another excellent mod here and also a great channel. So Prepper Now does great news reports. Prepper Nation does daily, information about what's going on in the world. And I watch everybody. And look, not everybody gets along with each other. And if you're not in the community, specifically, and you're just browsing around, you're like preparation, everybody's got their own opinions on how things operate and how things should go. But at the same time, we're all in the same community for a reason. We want to be prepared. We want to make sure that we don't become a bigger problem at the proverbial SHTF end of the world scenario that we all think might occur. And we want to make sure we get as many more people prepared as we can. So to me, regardless of ideology, regardless of whose opinions or whose, advice is better or worse or whatever it might be, I think we all have a part to play. And it's still good to gather as much of that intel and information as you can and then process it in a way that you feel is best fit for you. Okay, so there's just my 2 cents. Okay, all right, so and like I said, Prepper Now, no big deal that you have to bounce out early or camping. I think that's awesome. Camping is like a little bit of a practice run for bugging out, right? So it's always good to get out there and hit the sticks and, get into nature from time to time, okay? So let's see here. And Prepper Nation, I did see that there was some discourse based on the fact that people weren't getting the medicine that they want and everything else. And when I say that, I think you all know what I mean. And yes, of course, the news is going to spin it in that way because why not? Okay. Brandon Schmidt, you want a Magic Prepper beer koozie? Okay, we'll see what we can do. I don't know. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, okay? Let's see. Eric King, good to see you from East Tennessee. Is my first live chat with you. Well, welcome, Eric. You have missed very few live chats in the past, but I am on a mission to do more every single week on Mondays because from what I can tell, there's not a lot of other streams going on Monday night, and I was hoping not to step on anybody's toes, okay? I'm trying to do my best to find my own little slot, you know what I mean? Let's see here. So let's see. I'm trying to get some questions out of the chat. I want to make sure I get to hang out with you guys and kind of talk with the things that you want to talk about as well. Papa Murph says Cuba would be different right now if the citizens had the right to bear arms. That might be true. And, that's something that could be speculated on from time to time, of course. But it does help knowing in our country that there is that proverbial line that would have to be crossed in order for something like Cuban totalitarianism or communism to take place here. So important things to keep in mind, okay? So what's the best Marauder mover? You know what, Jinky, I gotta have you elaborate on that one a little bit. What do you mean? Okay, so Tennessee Tactical. I love that I'm live streaming too now. All right, so let's move on to another piece of what's happening out there in the world, okay? And I'll do my best to at least like kind of share some articles while I, talk about what's happening. And excuse me if this lighting's not the best for you guys. I'm still working on it. And here in North Dakota, it's 8:40 at night right now, and it's still brighter than, noon in the afternoon outside. So I'm doing my best to try to dampen it a little bit. Okay, so Kevin Caceres, at Magic Prepper, what is the worst thing to prep? Now, that's a difficult one because everybody's situation is different and everybody's environment's different. And there's a lot of things that you could say are better or worse to prep. I think that there is a limit is more what you want to work with, because if you say one specific item is bad to prep, then there's a good reason for you to not prep it at all. And I think it's good to have options and have a lot of different concepts that you're working with and different pieces of gear or equipment or food storage or water, or whatever it might be. So I would say that, once you get into things that are extremely expensive, let's talk about something like a full night vision setup. Okay. That could be a bad thing to prep if you don't have the basics like food and water and renewable energy covered, but you spent $3,500 on a night vision setup. That's just my 2 cents. So let's just say, luxury items might be the worst thing to prep. Okay, so now let's talk about what else is happening in the world. Of course, we already had the issue with Cuba. We're talking about what the people are dealing with there. And now we're going to talk about what everybody else is dealing with. So give me 1 second here. I've got some, boomer vibes going on right now where I don't even know what it is I'm doing. So give me 1 second. All right. Oh, I remember now. There we go. Sorry. Let's see here. Okay. You got to give me a break. This is like almost my first time. Okay. Haiti. What is going on in there? Well, we all saw what happened in Haiti, right? Everyone's very aware of the entire situation involving the assassination there, and everybody's aware of how the people are reacting and the fact that there are foreign actors possibly within the country that caused some of this chaos and tumultuism to happen, which, is that a word? Let's just let it at that, okay? But either way, Haiti is another example of another country in the world right now that's facing a huge crisis, that's been in a crisis for decades now, and has no stability. And the stability is failing there, and it already has failed in many ways, but now it's even falling apart further. And this whole situation around the president there being assassinated, foreign actors coming in and being part of said crime, and then now multiple people having a power struggle has led the people into chaos. And they're already dealing with hunger, starvation, lack of resources, lack of supplies. They're dealing with the effects of the economy due to the last year and the pandemic. And now their, president was taken out. So now there's a power struggle. Now the government is falling apart. Now you have foreign countries coming in to try to delegate who's going to be in charge of what. And we can see how it's going to affect the population there very negatively. And it's another example of what's going on in the world right now where people are falling apart. Now, what we have to do is these other countries, especially here right in our hemisphere, we have Cuba, we have Haiti, they're both down there in the Caribbean. And basically, we're talking about countries that are close by, and they're satellite countries. They're right on the outside of our larger country here in the United States, as well as, North America in general, Mexico, Canada. And these satellite countries are something we need to watch, because when they react in a certain way, we know that it's very possible that things could end up being a similar situation here in our country. And this is another example of what could happen if there was a sudden leadership change, if there was a sudden power struggle, if there was a sudden, what I'm talking about, in this country that could cause problems and fall apart. Sean Crosby, yeah, Wall Street Journal, not biased. Look, I try to grab sources from all different types of mainstream media, okay? And, I do my best to maybe alienate certain ones that have proven time and time again to be completely propaganda versus being actual information. But yes, I had Wall Street Journal, BBC. The next article is going to be from Fox News. And it's not because I'm choosing these specific mainstream media sources. It's because I wanted to find something that's relatively universal, so that way we could talk about it and maybe try to get us away from as much bias as we can while still getting decent amounts of information, okay? So what's happening in Haiti, definitely an issue and something we have to watch out for, because anything similar to that could happen here just as well. And we have to see what the people are dealing with there. Now, you had mob rule in many ways when these criminals were captured by the population. The police had to set up a defensive perimeter to make sure that those people weren't beaten to death in many ways, I guess, or whatever it was that was happening there. But what I can say is that it's another example of another country that's losing stability quickly and very fast. And it's something that we're seeing happen all over the world. And the same blame is being put on the economy, the lack of resources, the food shortages, and the lack of leadership. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And of course, it's the same thing that is happening around the world. So I'm trying to bring these examples to you guys while we chat about everything else going on in the world of prepping, because it is relative to what's happening right now. And these are outliers that we need to pay attention to, because you never know when something like this could occur here, okay? So let's see here. I got lots of people in the chat saying, I'm a marauder. Let's see, a private death. I said that upside down and backwards. You're welcome for reading your name correctly. Klingon Princess, hello, good to see you. Diabetic Prepper, good to see you as well. I'm not going to answer your question, though, because we all know that story. And I don't want to suddenly not be around, if you know what I mean. Let's see here. And then Salty Tide, what are your thoughts on this solar flare? So with the current solar flare situation, of course, a lot of solar flares happen throughout time. Not all of them are, mass ejections, but they can cause some disturbances. They can create auras in the atmosphere. And I don't think this one's going to be a huge problem. But what do I know? I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a scientist, but these are just my inclinations based on the information I've gotten, okay? Lucius Maximus, I'm a gray man, and that's important. But all gray men eventually turn marauder if they're lone wolf. So keep that in mind, okay? That's a problem. All right. So let's see here. We have a lot of other questions here. Okay, Himalaya Mix. Don't you think your get away from my house gift box will get you killed? Better just say get away and never come back. This is awesome. I'm glad you're actually asking me this question. And what I will say is that tomorrow you'll get a video specifically about that entire subject. There was enough negativity in that last video for me to have something really good to work with, to bring some other ideas and concepts to your attention that might help give you some more information about why something like that might be valuable, whether or not it's a good idea. So those are the types of questions I really appreciate, because wow, does it give me more ideas to work with for making content and working with you guys on trying to be better prepared, okay? Billy Bird Outdoors, wow, that's a lot of hearts, and now I know how you really feel, and that's okay. We can live with that, all right? So let's talk about, we have some more important information to talk about. I'm going to discuss that here in a minute. But this is Marauder Monday, and I want to at least get some Marauder stuff in there, okay? So what do you think about the entire situation regarding, what's happening in Haiti, what's happening in Cuba? The people are distressed. The people are desperate. They're coming out and they are making themselves heard about their situation. And the percentage of marauders there, I want to find out what you guys think the percentage of the population is going to be marauders when things fall apart. Because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And when they talk about things like grid down and the entire electric grid falling apart, and saying that only 90% of the American population would survive after a year of having complete grid down. Is that the case? And if that's the case, would the other 90% be the marauders? Or is it the 10% that's the marauders? What do you guys think? Because 90% of people supposedly will perish. Is that because they're marauders and they're doing it wrong? Or is it because the other 10% are the actual marauders and they're the only ones that are going to survive? I want to know what you guys think. And I want you guys to throw me some info in the chat or give me some ideas about your process there. Because honestly, I feel like we are the 10%ers. I feel like preppers are the ones who will survive. I feel like we're going to be the ones that have the information, and we're going to have the supplies and the equipment and everything set aside that we might need. And we're going to have the know-how. So when that time occurs, we'll be the 10%ers, and the 90% are going to be the marauders that we have to worry about. But there is a possibility that marauders could be the 10% because they might have the gumption to make it through whatever might be happening, and the do anything it takes mentality that some of us might not be willing to do. So keep that in mind. Throw it out in the chat. I want to see some answers on that. Let's see. Soul Kitchen 1979 says, did you already talk about Wells Fargo canceling personal lines of credit? Signs of bad things on the horizon. No, I did not already talk about it, but I did see it. And here's one of the things that I want to mention about that. With Wells Fargo going out of their way to cancel personal lines of credit, it just shows that secured lines are the only thing that the banks are concerned with right this second, because they are unsure of people's ability to repay some of these loans that are being taken out. And the biggest issue is that right now, the indicators in the economy and the jobless situations and the lack of labor and the labor shortage itself might not show an inability for people to earn money, but it shows a lack of motivation for people to earn money. And it also shows a willingness to live off of government money. And that's not what the bank wants to hear. Try applying for a loan when your only source of income is what comes from the federal government and see what they say. It's not going to work out the same way as you might think it is. And I think that's why the banks are starting to tighten up on what they're willing to loan out. So good question on that. And I appreciate you popping into the chat. Okay. And, I'm trying to see more questions. And this is just hard for me to do because there's so many people talking, which is what I love. So thank you so much for that. Okay. So let's talk about another situation that's happening in the world right now so that we can kind of keep on top of what's going on and try to be better prepared about what we could see happening one day here in the future, okay? And that other piece of information is going to pop up here in just a second for you. And yes, this is from Fox News, very biased, I am aware. But like I said, I just try to skew different information from different sources, and then I try to use what's universally acceptable in the sense of at least just information. And this is about how North Korea is losing their stability as well. There's a lot of indicators of that. And we all know North Korea is a rogue state. We all know North Korea has had issues in the past with starvation and famines and economic collapse, and obviously the brutality of the way that they treat their people. But what I like to say about this is that North Korea is always an issue because they're an outlying threat that is kind of a wild card, and we don't know how they're going to react to total collapse. We don't know how they're going to react to regime change, and we don't know how they're going to react to foreign intervention. And now they're talking about the fact that they are losing even more stability because of their inability to deal with the outbreak, their issue of food shortages. I believe somewhere in this article it says about needing, I want to say it was 2 million tons of food to be on track to be able to feed their population, and they're short 2 million tons. And that's a lot of food to just not have that you need. And so their entire country is falling apart, and it's another example of the stability falling off to the wayside right now. And yes, it's a country that's had a lot of instability for a long time. However, now they're actually coming out and just saying that the instability exists and that they are falling apart. And we're seeing it happen. It's being reported on. And now we're talking about the fact that even their leadership looks like they're falling apart. And when we say that, we mean that there's power struggles within the Kim family. And we also know that, just silly things like the fact that the guy's skinny now is an issue, apparently. That's what they say anyway. But what I will say is that it's another situation for us to keep an eye on. So far we've talked about Cuba, we've talked about Haiti, and now we're talking about North Korea. And these are three outlying countries that have always had issues and always had different forms of instability. They have very lackluster leadership. Their governments are not ran well. And of course, the people are starting to feel the grasp of that government totalitarianism, and it's not working. And these are going to cause even more instabilities in the future. And then the people are eventually going to find themselves in a very desperate situation, which might lead to more chaos. And so these are the things that I look at and I say, okay, indicators around the world right now of places losing stability. And what does that look like for them? And what can we learn from that in the sense of preparation for what it might look like for us if the same level of instability occurs here? And that's exactly what we should be thinking of, okay? Now, some people have been talking in the chat about South Africa too. And of course, South Africa has a lot of different facets for why they have instability. And they have a lot of different history for what's causing some of the instability now. But it's another part of the world that has, like I said, it's developed. It's not a third world country, but it's falling apart and it's losing its stability quickly. And it will be in that third world country situation very soon if things don't change quickly. And we're finding that to happen all around the world now. And it'd be very naive of us to just assume it can never happen here. And that's something that we do a lot as Americans, and we do a lot even as preppers, is that we hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And by hoping for the best, we assume that things aren't ever going to look like they do in countries like Syria, for example. And here we are watching this happen in other countries now nearby. And of course, Venezuela has always been a huge example to the prepping community of how things could look once shortages hit a mile high, once inflation goes rampant, once the people are brought to their knees and no longer have the freedom to operate. And of course, now look where they are. So these are all issues that we are trying to figure out, okay? Now, I want to get back into the chat, find out what you guys are talking about, and I want to see, let's see, like Javier Flores says, what about prepping to go to Mars? You know, I haven't had a chance to touch base with Elon Musk recently, but I'll be working on that in short time. So I'll let you know how that goes. I'm sure he will respond to me immediately. I'm extremely important, in case you didn't know. All right, so, and I hope you guys know that that was sarcasm. Anyway, you want my coffee, Jairai? Well, I don't know if it's coffee tonight. So this is Marauder Monday, right? We're talking about why we need to prepare. We're talking about things that are happening on the global stage. And then what else we need to talk about is the fact that Marauders drink soda. And right now I'm drinking Dr. Pepper, which is not the most Marauder soda, but I would assume maybe Mountain Dew. You guys tell me in the chat what soda you think Marauders drink. Probably Surge. But either way, this Dr. Pepper is going to hit real nice. Oh, yeah. Now, listen, I don't drink a ton of soda, but when I do, it's the best. Anyway, I hope you guys don't hate Dr. Pepper. Big Red might be the best Marauder soda. You're right, Lone Savage, because I've only ever known one guy to go out of his way to drink Big Red. And I'm not going to say he'd be a Marauder, but I definitely wouldn't want to mess with him either. So there's that, okay? So let's see here. Okay, Blood. That's a good answer, too. We got Red Bull or Monster. Fago. Okay, Guillermo Flores. Fago. All right, now in the chat, and this is not to offend anybody, but likelihood of juggalos being Marauders. Go. Okay, so from there on, I want to talk about, you know, other reasons to prepare besides just seeing the chaos that's happening around the world, besides just seeing the house of cards starting to slowly fall. And I want you guys to be aware that these things don't happen immediately, okay? And nothing is on time. Things definitely take a long time to progress into a full-on SHTF scenario. And it's not something that we should be unaware of, but we do have a very bad habit of feeling like SHTF is going to be an immediacy. We think that this giant asteroid is going to hit, or we think that there's going to be an attack, or we think that something's going to happen immediately that sends everybody back into the Stone Age. And then the next thing you know, you're walking down the street wearing a backpack, wondering why everything turned into a desert. And that's not exactly what is going to happen. Is it possible? Of course. But with what we're seeing in the world right now, with what we've seen over the last year, we know that this is not just a 5-minute interval of going from good to bad. We know that this is going to take a very long time. And then 10 years from now, or 1 year from now, or 20 years from now, whatever the amount of time might be, we're going to look at this time in our lives and say, man, I wish I would have done more back then. And that's exactly what we should be doing now. Yes, we can see the shortages right now. And I don't know if you guys have been to the grocery store lately. I don't know if you've been to the big box stores lately, but there are empty shelves still. Every time I go to the grocery store, there's an entire section that is missing product, okay? And I know recently I was chatting with a few guys over on Prepper Nation's channel about the bakery aisle being very empty, you know, and then also the cleaning supplies. And these are things that still haven't caught up, and the shortages are still there and still showing us that we're not caught up yet, and things aren't necessarily going to just get caught up. These things are big, big systems of networks and logistics that don't just fix themselves overnight. And all the things we're seeing now are from the effects of last year and probably even before then. And now we're starting to reap what we sow. And that's an issue that we have to keep in mind, okay? So, Tyler Wallach, what do you think of a compound bow for SHTF? I think a bow of any kind is definitely important to have. Bows are very good at what they're made for in the sense of hunting. They are silent. You can reuse your arrows. You can acquire more arrows. And I do feel that everyone should at least have some form of bow, okay? I don't have much in the archery department right this second. We have a recurve bow and we have a long bow. And that's about it. But I am looking at getting a compound bow here relatively soon. I'd like to do some more hunting here in the future, and I would like to do archery and kind of learn how that works. But I haven't done it before, so it's not something that I'm an expert on or that I feel comfortable with. But yes, I would get a compound bow, and I am going to get a compound bow. Do I think a crossbow has its place? Of course I do. Bows are very, strategic and very, good and reliable for things that require stealth. And of course, I don't think I have to explain that any further. But yes, I think a bow is extremely important, okay? Let's see here. Domestic Gangster. How is this the first time I made it to your live chat? Because I've only done like 6 ever the entire time I've ran this channel. We're doing it weekly now. And for anybody who's new to this live stream, every Monday I'm going to do Marauder Mondays. I'm going to try my best. And if something falls apart, I guarantee you it's because something crazy happened. But I'm going to do my best to always be here at 8:30 on Mondays, Central Standard Time, okay? So let's see here. We got a lot of first-timers here. If you guys are first-timers here in the live stream, just do like hashtag first time or something like that. I won't make fun of you for any other first times you might have had, but this is something that, you know, would be interesting to see. Okay, Michael Rutledge says, are Jackeries worth the money? At this point, we're starting to get a lot of different solar generators from different manufacturers, and they all have the same capabilities in many ways. If you don't want to spend the money on something like an energy or a Kodiak or an energy Kodiak or like a Blue Yeti or something like that, then yes, getting some of these other, you know, cheaper Chinese-made solar generators might be the way to go because honestly, they're getting to that point of just being able to consume and provide power in the same way that many of the others can. So I don't think there's anything wrong with them. And of course, if you've got something like a Jackery, you're going to have a decent warranty on it, and you're going to have Amazon there to take care of you because that's probably the #1 reseller of their products. All right, Prescott Caliber Club in the house. What's up, man? Good to see you. Ryan is always a great dude, so, you know, make sure you say hi to him. Always a good guy to talk to. Has great advice, always, okay? So let's see here. Lots of first-timers. I saw some North Dakotans here in the chat, too. I do want to say I love this state. Will it kill me in the winter? Maybe. Will it kill all the Marauders in the winter? Yes. And that's why we're here. But what I do want to say is that it's a great state for opportunity. If you are trapped in a state where you have low quality of life, high cost of living, and you're not able to get ahead and you're not sure what to do, North Dakota is full of really high-paying jobs. It has a decent cost of living. And out here, there's a lot of opportunity that you might not have access to anywhere else. You know, I moved my family out here with a job that offered full relocation, paid very well, had benefits, everything else was smooth. I moved out here without paying a single cent out of my own pocket. It was an amazing transfer, and it's changed our lives for the better, hands down. And yes, the winters are very harsh out here. The landscape's not for everybody. But what I will say is that in the sense of being prepared, I feel very confident that out here with a very low population, I believe the state has somewhere in the 750 to 800,000 range of people total in the whole state, not just in a city, the entire state. It does seem like a good place to be if you want to be away from people and have space and privacy. So just wanted to throw that out there. I definitely feel more prepared now than when I lived in the, you know, East Bay Valley area of California, because that was not a great place to be in the sense of preparedness, okay? So let's see here. We got a lot of first-timers, so thank you guys so much. And we got, you know, people from Nebraska, Rachel Corbin, good to see you. Billy Bird Outdoors, any property next to you? Well, there is, but it's owned, so probably not, I guess. But there is property in our area, and there is a lot of property out here in North Dakota. Is it the most affordable? No. I mean, there's property in places like Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, you know, Alabama, Georgia. There's property in those states that is much more affordable than out here because of the resources and the fact that people out here do make a lot of money. So a lot of people can afford to buy property. So it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's cheap out here, but the opportunities that exist and the jobs that are out here and the industry that's out here pays you to the point where you can afford to finally get that property. So I guess that might be something you have to weigh in as part of the deal there, okay? And Billy Bird, I do not have my wife bring me Dr. Peppers, although I understand why you'd want to see her and why you'd want her to bring me a Dr. Pepper. And I will say that I married up and you got me. Okay, so let's see. Prepper Nation, open a bed and breakfast. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do that. There's something weird about running a hotel to me, okay? But there are some other cool ideas out here. And guys, in the sense of Marauders, right? Because it's Marauder Monday and we got to talk about it. What's everybody's thoughts on the idea of doing like a community escape, okay? And what I mean by that is like a golden ticket situation. Out here in North Dakota, there's a special type of property that you can find pretty affordable, and it's called a missile silo. North Dakota is home to many of the Minuteman missile silos from the Cold War era, and the Minuteman missile silos are gigantic, and they have blast doors, and they're made to withstand, you know, atomic bombs. And there's some that are for sale out here, and some of them are not very expensive. We're talking, and when I say not very expensive, I don't mean like it's just easy for me to afford it. But what I'm saying is, in the grand scheme of things, having 32 acres with a house on the property and a full-on missile silo with a blast door and everything might only cost about $500,000, which if you live in New York, California, even Florida, 500 grand is just like a middle of the road house. So let me know your thoughts on that, because that might be something we could crowdfund and golden ticket our way into a bunker if things get bad. I'm just throwing it out there, okay? It's just ideas I've had, all right? So, Prepper Book Club, they do cost a fortune to renovate, and that's true. But I would sit in one during an atomic blast that wasn't renovated rather than not, I guess. Just throwing it out there, okay? So, let's see. Mythos, I want in, baby. And that's exactly what Marauders are going to say. So, careful with that line. Just throwing it out there, okay? So, here's another one, guys, and say it in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. Number one weapon for Marauders. What do you expect to see people carrying around? And maybe it's not anything, obvious. Maybe it's something ridiculous. Maybe it's a club. Maybe it's a tire iron, whatever it might be. What is the number one Marauder weapon we're going to see people walking around with in the apocalypse? Because that's what we're going to have to deal with. And we should know, okay? So, machete, bats, tire iron. See? It's always clubs. It's always clubs, okay? Shotgun, okay, I could see that, especially like a sawed-off double barrel, right? Mad Max style. All right, let's see. Oh, my gosh. Yes, these are some great answers. Great answers. I like it. I like it. Okay, so I just saw somebody say they don't like the word community. It's spelled too much like communist. That is interesting, okay? But we are a community, and we need to be more of a community in many ways. The more we can network, the more we can band together, and the more we can get more people involved with preparation, the better off we'll all be whenever there is an emergency, okay? And I really feel strongly about that, because honestly, we see it anytime there's a disaster. Communities come together, they help each other. Look what happened in Texas during the winter storm. People came together, got each other heat, got each other water, helped each other survive through that whole conundrum. And those people learned firsthand what it is to deal with a grid down situation and not have the proper supplies to do so. And what's nice about that, the only positive thing about that, is that those people are so much better prepared now than they were before. I guarantee it. So a learning lesson for those who are involved, and a learning lesson for those of us who were not involved, to see exactly what it could look like when things don't come together. But when communities come together and band, then people survive and people actually get through, which they might not have otherwise. So it's something to consider and keep in mind, okay? So let's see. Lone Savage, that's how Texans are. That's right. And I got family in Texas. We do visit the Houston area every so often, and I do enjoy my time down there. It's the only time I ride a horse for some reason. I should probably do that more often, I guess. All right, so Gardner Josh, good mod. Thank you, sir, for all your help. I appreciate it. And Josh has been around since the beginning. Legitimately, since the beginning of time, actually. But Gardner Josh says, are you planting any farm animals, and have you started a garden? So we haven't started a garden yet. We're still kind of getting situated in the property. It was enough just for me to clear out the space I needed to be able to have a place for a garden, let alone start building the raised beds and everything else. We have a huge prairie dog issue out here. So that's something else I have to consider when doing a garden. I'm going to have to fence it in or do something. So there's a lot of issues there. And any North Dakotans in the chat, let me know your way of dealing with these prairie dogs, because the pellet gun just ain't cutting it. I'm just throwing it out there, okay? But yes, we're eventually going to get farm animals. One thing we've had before that we'd probably like to do again was have goats. We really enjoyed having them as animals for keeping the property groomed and maintained, while also having the benefits of the additional livestock. So I felt like there was more than one reason to have them, let alone just to have the ability to say I own a horse or something, okay? We also like the idea of obscure animals, like alpacas or something, just because why not? Alpacas can make great clothing, and you guys would love my alpaca wool during any SHTF scenario. I guarantee it, because alpaca underwear is the only way to go in -30. Everyone knows that. All right, so 7mm mag for prairie dogs. Got it. I will write that down. I have a feeling that's going to be a problem. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to read some more of these awesome comments, some more questions. And you guys let me know, if there's things you want me to talk about or things you're interested in, give me a heads up in the chat, because I'm really interested in it, okay? I want to be able to interact with you guys more, and I want everyone to feel like there is more community and network here. And I know that was something that I wasn't able to do as often, in the sense of, doing live streams and actually being able to talk to you guys one-on-one. But it is something I really do want to do more often, okay? And it is something that I feel is important because it's nice to be able to actually just talk to everybody rather than just, record a video and try to get good information out there and interact after the fact, Let's see. Should we stockpile fireworks for SHTF? Carver Upgood. So one thing I would say about fireworks, and here's the best thing I can say about them, is that they have uses. There is use to fireworks in an SHTF scenario. Of course, you can use them to set alarms, perimeter alarms, and things like that. And you can also use them as distractions. According to Land of the Dead, you can use them as sky flowers to, discombobulate the zombie population. That was a bad movie. But those are different examples of what fireworks might be good for in SHTF. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why they could be useful, okay? Even if it's just to start a fire in a difficult environment, those things will burn. So there is that. Let's see here. Nutritional value of prairie dogs. M. Giordano, I am being told that they're not good to eat. I just want you guys to know that. So just my opinion, and they carry disease and fleas and all that other stuff, I guess. But, I guess if I had to eat them, I probably would. I eat just about anything. I'm just going to throw it out there. I will try any food that I see somebody else eat at least once. But I'm not that guy who's just going to take the food that you made me and eat it because, I've seen Game of Thrones and I know how this works, okay? So now I need depleted uranium shells for the prairie dogs. I didn't realize these things were so armored. This is getting out of hand. Okay, I'm a little concerned about the level of prairie dogs I have in my property now. So let's see. Richard Jr., do you think your house is Marauder proof enough or can it use more? Here's the thing, and this is just something I want to kind of put out there. And I want you guys to really think about this. But your house can only be so secure unless you literally live in like a castle or a prison or something that's fortified for a specific reason. If you live in a generic home, which most of us do because we don't own castles or prisons or whatever else, underground bunkers or anything like that, because we can't really, afford it. Your home can only be so fortified. Bars on the windows, okay? All your doors don't have glass. You don't have windows. Everything's cement or brick or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, if enough people decide they want to get in or get you out, they're going to be able to. And so deterrence and prevention is a good place to start. Security that gives you a heads up is also a good way to go. But having an evasion and escape plan might be more valuable than fully fortifying a home to the point where you spent a lot of money and time investing in the ability to lock your house down just to find out someone can still light it on fire if they need to. And that is something that we all have to consider because marauders are going to operate in that way. Okay, that's how things are going to go. They want in, they're going to get in. And that's kind of like the facade of locking your doors when you have a sliding glass door on your back patio. Of course, locking the doors is important because it's, just saying you don't want someone to come in, and it's a limiting access to those who don't want to try very hard. But throwing a rock through your back patio door isn't that hard to do either if someone really wants to make sure they walk in the door. So, of course, deterrence and your ability to defend yourself is going to be more valuable in that moment than trying to cover everything with sheet metal or whatever else it is you might try to do. So that's just my 2 cents. And yes, I am trying to harden my home to a degree, but at a certain point, look at what happened in medieval warfare, okay? Look at history to get some ideas about how to operate in the future. In medieval warfare, castles were sieged for months at a time. And yes, castles were very, very fortified. They were built out of stone. But at the end of the day, after enough time and after enough erosion of attrition, those castles usually fell unless outside forces came to save the day. And that is just how things worked at that time. And that's probably how things would work now if enough people decided that they're going to get into your house or they're going to wait around until you can't stay in anymore. And so that's just kind of where I'm at. Sorry, that's just what I think, I guess. You know what I mean? All right, Brian Keith says he can't burn his house down. It's built out of cement blocks, older style home. You'll need a bulldozer or a tank to hurt my house. And they might have one. I'm just going to throw it out there. Okay. Let's see. I see Guns Coast to Coast is in the chat. Good to see you, my friend, and another awesome moderator here. So let's see. We have some good input here in the chat. I've got some good people. Let's see. And like I said, the point of this Marauder Mondays is I love talking about that kind of stuff. Is my house fortified enough? you're going to need a bulldozer, and you can't burn anything down on my property. Awesome to talk about. The other things we're talking about here is some of the terrible situations going on around the world to give us indicators as to what things are looking like and how the escalation is occurring in different places. And like people are saying, South Africa is in a civil war right now. Okay, so South Africa falling apart, right? Well, we see what's happening in Haiti. We see what's happening in Cuba. We see what's happening in North Korea. Now we know what's happening in the sense of, cyber attacks and, what's happening in the South China Sea and what's going on with Russia and all this stuff going on. It's just something good for us to keep an eye out on. It's not about living in a perpetual state of fear, but it's about being reasonable and logical about what is happening and using it to our advantage to try to be better prepared and to hopefully see things coming before they arrive. And that's all it comes down to. We're not here to panic about what's happening in Haiti. We're here to look at it and say, okay, so if a similar situation occurred here and there's a sudden leadership change that was done in a way that wasn't, acceptable, then what's going to happen? And this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a societal breakdown in some way or another, and you're going to have mob rule, and you're going to have people going out and causing, their own form of martial law in the sense of, what they decide is going to happen. And without the police there, the people who are involved with that assassination would all not be alive today. So those are things to consider, okay? So, all right. Domestic Gangster, good night. Thank you so much for being here. And there's a lot of people in the chat right now that I see in many other chats. And I don't know if you guys know this or if you guys do some of what I do, but I'm often in live streams here on YouTube and I don't chat or comment. A lot of times I'm driving and I'm just listening to what the person is saying. And, I do see a lot of you in the chat and I might not say anything there, but it is good to see so many people that interact with so many different channels here and so many different creators, because everybody has different pieces of advice, opinions, and good information to put out there. Even if it's counter to the information you're getting from someone else, I like hearing both perspectives. Trust me on that one, okay? And there's some really good creators out there who do a good job of delivering their opinion, if you haven't noticed. Okay, so let's see. We've got, I need a few more pieces of input here, okay? So we've got people talking about how to keep the people away from your home, right? So we're talking about putting up caution tape, putting up quarantine signs, putting up biohazard signs, and all kinds of stuff like that. And the one thing that I will say, and this is just from, I guess, experience in, my professional life, as well as just in the sense of kind of trying to understand how things work, in the world or whatever. But a lot of people, hi, Kathy McDaniel. I just happened to see you say hi. So hello, good to see you. People don't read signs. And it's not even about ignoring signs. It's them literally not having enough situational awareness to even look at a sign. And that is something that happens all the time. And in fact, how many people here have been pulled over for speeding that never even saw the sign that said they had to slow down to a different speed limit? This is just something that happens. It's not about purposefully ignoring signs. Sometimes people don't read signs at all because they don't pay attention to their surroundings, or they're distracted, or they don't care. And I, often have had people, and I think a lot of what I think about when it comes to this is like a no smoking sign, right? So you're on a patio at a restaurant and you say, hey, excuse me, you can't smoke here. Well, why? We're outside. Well, there's a sign right here that says no smoking. You can't be within 15 feet of a door, or whatever the rule is on that. And the first thing they're going to say is, oh, I didn't see it. And you know what? I don't even think they're lying. I think most of the time they literally didn't look to see if there was a sign because they weren't concerned about whether or not somebody else wanted them to do what it was they were going to do or not. And that is something that we should expect in SHTF as well. Marauders, or people with malicious intent, or people who don't even have malicious intent but may just be looking for help or whatever it is, they're not going to read a sign necessarily just because it says no trespassing. They're not going to read a sign necessarily just because it says, don't come around, or, private property, or biohazard, or quarantine. I mean, think about teenagers. How often as a teenager did you go somewhere that had a sign that said you're not allowed to, or employees only, or whatever it might be? I don't know if you've ever been let into the back door of a movie theater, but there's usually a sign. I'm just going to throw it out there. So just my 2 cents on the signs. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say not to use signs, because they still have their effectiveness in the sense of liability and stuff like that. But I don't expect people to be, looking to see what the sign says at the end of the world or anything like that. Okay, so Let's see here. I am seeing that I'm missing some awesome input here. All right. Little Red Hen. I've never had a speeding ticket, and that's awesome. And I can't say that, but keep it up because, what's the point? Anyway, Day and Tonight, what's up? Good to see you. Guns Coast to Coast. Scatter crap on your lawn to make it look picked over. Not a bad idea. And is anyone coming to the junkyard? I don't know. But, hey, that's one way to kind of leave a message of, it's just crap here. Don't worry. Let's see. All right. I'm seeing a lot of good input here. I'm trying to get back into the chat. I just want to hear what you guys have to say. And when it comes to Leonardo Griego, now hiring sign, that will keep them away. All right. So it's probably Leonard Griego. I don't know. Leonard just came out. I guess I really wanted to say Leonardo for some reason. But yes, now hiring doesn't seem to work very well either, does it? Okay. So I just want you guys to kind of give me some more info in the chat about your thoughts on how you can spot someone who's a marauder now before SHTF. What are the people that you know that you interact with regularly, people that are your friends, your family, people you have to deal with at work or whatever it might be, and that make you go, okay, yeah, you're going to be one of those, because we all know those people and we all know exactly who they're going to be. And it's a problem that we should at least be aware of now so we know how to talk to that person correctly when that time comes. Okay. Let's see here. I think I saw Andrea put a question up. Andrea Little One Tyler, who here has dogs and will you rely on them for protection? My dogs are more so for alertness, okay, for giving me a heads up. My dogs will give me a heads up if somebody come into the door. They'll give me a heads up if there's something going on in the property or in the backyard that I can't see myself. And they also do a good job of just, maintaining a little bit of security in the sense of like, if they're out in the yard with the kids or something like that, it makes me feel better that the kids, have someone there with them. When I say someone, I'm talking about a dog, so that's kind of ridiculous. But what I mean is that I know that at least, our smart dog, because I have a really dumb one too, our smart dog will do a good job of at least, either protecting the kids or letting someone know that something's wrong with the kids. And so I think that they're a good alarm system, and I think that they're a good alert system. I don't rely on them for protection, though, because in all honesty, look, I have dealt with some aggressive dogs in the past. I've dealt with some very big dogs in the past, and there are some dogs out there that could definitely, show me a good time. But I do know that there's a lot of dogs out there that wouldn't necessarily create the biggest threat for me, especially in the sense of being able to carry something for self-defense. And that's just how it is. I mean, I don't know. Dogs, to me, they're a great deterrent. They're a great alarm system. I don't rely on them specifically for protection. I think that they can be a great ally in a bad situation, but I don't think it would be fair for your dog for you to fully rely on them either. Imagine, expecting your 60-pound dog to protect you from a grizzly bear just because they're a dog. That doesn't work either. All right, so let's see here. Well, Trent McMurray has 2 Mastiffs and 2 Boer Bells, so I don't even know if that's how you say it. But yeah, I mean, those are big dogs. And of course, that's the different story. I'm not going to hand-to-hand deal with Mastiffs. But what I'm saying is it doesn't take a lot to deal with the dog either, because they don't have the concept of evasion, I guess, when it comes to dealing with self-defense items, okay? Let's see here. Trying to get back in the chat. There's some good stuff here, man. Okay, we have a lot of interesting stuff going on here. And Utah Mike says, would it be advisable to sandbag doors? Sandbagging, I mean, in my experience, it's all about, hurricane preparedness, making sure water can't come into your home. That's what we've used sandbags for. The idea of using sandbags as a way to, stop projectiles from entering your property or your home. I mean, sure, you could use those in the sense of, fortifying. You could use those in the sense of making sure that you have a location or an area that is protected from any kind of bombardment. But, something I suggest doing right now, I mean, I don't know. What I would say is a bad idea to have sandbags on hand that you could fill at any time and use to your advantage? Sure, why not? I think having variety and having, options is extremely important. And I would say, why not? Yeah. And I know there are people who load their empty space between the studs and their drywall with sandbags because it basically makes their walls bulletproof, right? And that's not something that I'm going to go out of my way to accomplish, but I understand the concept behind it. It's not a terrible idea, but I guess having one specific location in your home that you could sandbag that makes it impenetrable in many ways would be a good idea. That way you know exactly where to go in a bad situation involving some kind of projectile bombardment, okay? So let's see. Jeeper D says, what about plywood over the windows and doors with big orange X's and O's around it? I think plywood has a couple of different aspects to it, okay? Plywood in a situation where everybody's using it shows that you're prepared for an emergency that's about to happen, like a hurricane, okay? That was something that living in Florida for 20 years, we did sometimes. You put plywood on the windows or you taped them or whatever it is you did. But if you're the only house with plywood up and then no one else has plywood up, now we're starting to look at your house and say, well, what's going on over there and why they got all that plywood up? And vice versa. If you're the only house without plywood, now it's starting to look like there's a lack of a degree of carelessness maybe, or whatever it might be. So I think plywood is something that's very overt and very obvious when you utilize it in the sense of hardening a home, protecting your windows and your doorways and everything else like that. It's something that needs to be done with discretion in the sense of what's happening around you, aka using the gray man status concept. Is every house down the street covered in plywood? Then it won't matter if mine is. Is mine the only house with plywood? What is it that I know and what is it that I have that I need to protect so much? Those are different things that we have to consider, and you have to use it to your advantage based on your surroundings. So that's what I would say about that. Just my 2 cents. And Classical Librarian says, be careful you don't trap yourself inside with plywood if someone wants to start a fire. And I think that's a good piece of advice because in all honesty, yes, I mean, that can be used against you if you no longer have an escape, or if your only escape becomes super obvious. Okay, everything's plywooded except for the back door. Now we know the back door is the way in and out. Okay, well, that's obviously what we're going to stake out. So these are things that we have to consider when it comes to anything related to, hardening a home. Okay, rule number 1, don't talk about your plans. Heard that. All right, so we got a lot of other good stuff coming in here. And I do want to say thank you guys to the mods. You guys are awesome, and I want you guys to know that I really appreciate everything you do here because it is hard to keep up with when you're the person doing the stream and you're also trying to read the chat, and I literally can't read every single chat that comes in. So thank you so much for all your help with that. I really appreciate it, guys. One thing I'll say, and I think I saw this somewhere in the chat, but I just want to mention this, okay? If you have dogs, because we're talking about that just a minute ago, make sure you have plenty of dog food because dog food is sometimes, scarce as well. It's not just about what we need for ourselves, but the dog food can disappear very quickly. And when companies like General Mills are coming out expecting inflation, saying a 7% increase of prices by the end of the year, you can expect that to affect things like dog food as well. And we can see at the stores right now that even the selection of dog food is less than maybe what it used to be. And I've seen it at my local stores that I can't always buy the exact bag of food that I went there for. So these are just other things to consider and something that a lot of people don't tend to remember when it comes to prepping. Like they put away tons of rice, tons of beans, all the dried goods, the corn, the wheat, and everything else. But then they forget that the dogs still have to eat. Yes, you can feed the dogs that food, but it would be nice to maintain their diet and put them in a position to where they're still comfortable and able to digest and, do all their business the way that they're supposed to. So I'm just throwing that out there, okay? Dog food is always good to have. I guess in the worst case scenario, you could eat it. I wouldn't want to, but sure. Anyway, I'm trying to keep up with everybody here. Let's see. So Gardner, Josh, you got 100 chickens now. You got goats and rabbits and geese. That's crazy, man. Yeah, email me some pics. That's awesome. Anytime you guys want. And just so you guys know, magicprepper@gmail.com. I mean, that's all you have to do if you want to talk to me directly. I don't always get back to you guys right away, and sometimes I don't get back to you at all. I'll be honest with that. It's nothing to do with whether or not I want to answer you or whether or not I am unwilling to. It's all about sometimes losing the messages in the giant pile of emails I already received. So I'll do my best to communicate with you directly if I can, but there are some times where I lose track, and I'm not going to lie to you about that. It's just very hard. I do this entire thing mostly by myself with some help from my wife, and it's a lot for us to stay on top of. I'm not gonna say it's not. It just is. But it doesn't make me upset, that's for sure. I really appreciate everything I get in the email inbox, all the contact I get, all the messages I get. I mean, you guys are awesome. And this is the best community on YouTube. It's the best community on the internet. I mean, people who just want to be prepared, self-reliant, and be able to take care of themselves throughout an emergency. Why would you not want to be surrounded with those people? Those are the people that you want to be involved with, because they're not going to be a burden on you in any kind of a situation involving SHTF or something along those lines. Okay, so we know stability is failing, and that's just something I want to bring back this conversation to for a minute, because first off, that's what this whole live stream is titled. But second off, stability is failing for many, many reasons. And it's because everything was built on a weak foundation. And this weak foundation was propped up by a ridiculously complicated logistics system on a mountain of debt of money that doesn't actually exist, and is planned to be fully operated on a currency that no longer has the value it should have or used to have. And now we're talking about being in a scenario where countries are starting to fall off to the wayside. And like I said, we talked about Cuba, we talked about Haiti, we talked about North Korea. People have brought up South Africa, and we can see it happening over and over again throughout the world. And we know now that people are no longer able to keep up, and that resources are failing, shortages are in full swing, economies are crumbling, and desperation is running wild in the world. And people are no longer going to just sit by and allow it. And we're seeing unrest constantly throughout different parts of the world, as well as within our own country. And yes, there's unrest still happening all the time here in the United States as well. It's just not being advertised as often on media for obvious reasons. And I'm sure you guys can understand or figure out why, but it's not being broadcast the same way it was before. And a lot of times it has to do with who's in power. And now we're in a situation where things are being basically, covered up, or not necessarily covered up, but being, walked over. So that way there's less interaction with that concept of negativity. And we're trying to push the narrative back into positive realm. It's because everything's great. Everything's fine. As long as everybody just toes the line and maintains exactly what it is they were doing before, but does a few extra things that we expect them to, then we're all going to be okay. And that's the new message that's being put out there. So of course the unrest and anything related to it isn't being put out there the same way as it was before. And now we are in a situation where we're seeing it happen in other countries, and it can't be ignored to a certain degree. And we're going to see more of that happen here if things don't improve. And there's not really a reason to expect them to improve very quickly. We know that people are not getting back to work, even though there is a labor shortage. People are no longer getting back to work, and their expectations of what they should receive in order to work are very, very high, which cannot necessarily be sustained by the companies that are hiring these people. Right now, a lot of desperation hiring is happening. People are being paid a lot of money, more than they necessarily used to earn, and there's going to be inflation built off of that concept as well. And then when you move into the next phase, when people start realizing they can't afford this labor force that they brought back on board, we're going to see another wave of unemployment occur. And when that occurs, we're going to go back to things like the eviction moratoriums. We're going to go back into the idea of universal basic income. We're going to go back into the concept of people needing the government to be able to survive. And that is where the cycle starts, to continually roll over. And that's one of the big issues that we have to foresee coming here in the future. Okay. So that's why we take examples from Haiti, Cuba, North Korea, like you guys said, South Africa. We look at what's happening there and we say, wow, they're already there and we are on the edge. And when that proverbial edge turns into a free fall, what is it that we're going to expect to see? And we know exactly what that is. And it's Marauders. So I did want to say that we hit the hour mark, and I do want to try to keep these to about an hour because I don't want to ramble on so long that you guys get sick of my voice and don't want to come back next week. But I do want to say that there's some great information out there and great channels out there to get opinions, advice, suggestions, and intel from that are always good for you to entertain yourself with. And when I say entertain yourself, what I mean is entertain ideas, entertain different perspectives, entertain different points of view, and give yourself the best well-rounded opinion on what it is you should be doing to be better prepared. Because if I just listened to one or two sources and just did exactly what it was they said to do always, then I wouldn't have as much understanding of my own level of preparedness as I would have just following a list of what it is somebody else said. And at that point, when things go wrong, you might not be in a better position because your preps and your inventory and what it is that you've done in the sense of building a skill, a level of skill is tuned to somebody else's tune. Okay. And that's not exactly the best way to approach things. So that's just my opinion. Do as much research as you can and get around as much as you can in the sense of other preppers and other YouTube channels that can give you good advice. Okay. And there are some great ones out there. Okay. There's a lot of good ones here in the chat right now. And Guns Coast to Coast says, stay away from his channel. It's exclusive by invite only. And I will say, if you like strong opinions on things that you might not always agree with, but you want to hear it anyway, excellent channel to check out. Just throwing it out there, okay? So you guys are awesome. I really appreciate all of you. This has been an awesome first Marauder Mondays live stream. I will continually try to improve this quality, and I will try to get great information. And next Monday, the 19th, Rudy from Alaska Prepper will be here. So make sure you guys are here too, because Alaska Prepper is an awesome guy, one of the most humble, nice people I've met while this whole YouTube endeavor has been a thing. He is a great person to network with and has great advice and great knowledge, especially when it comes to food storage and how to make food with all of your gross stored up food that you had that you weren't sure if you ever wanted to eat or not. He'll tell you if it's good or not. He'll tell you how to cook it if you don't want to, experiment too much. So awesome guy. I really like Rudy, and he's going to be here next week, and it's going to be amazing. So thank you guys so much. Been an awesome Marauder Monday. Mods, you are the best. I appreciate every single one of you. And I really hope that you guys all just prepare as best you can. And if you ever need anything from me, magicprepper@gmail.com. You can go to my website, magicprepper.com. There's a contact form there. And I always will do my best to do what I can. And I can't always get to everybody, but I will. Sometimes you'll see address things in the live shows, and I'll try to bring information you guys send me onto the live streams as well to help share with the rest of the community and try to make us stronger as a network. So thank you guys so much, and I really hope to see you next week. And if there's anything else you need, just let me know. And as always, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.